Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast with your hosts, Adam Emmert.
Aaron Rodgers can't be the number one player in the league. He slipped last year. He did. I can't blame him. He's probably distracted by his super hot girlfriend. Like, I understand. He's got other things.
And Brandon Schultz.
We need to be more encouraging of Pete Prisco, Adam. We need to help him along. Good job. You had Russell in the top 50. We've told you many times to do better, and now you are. We're proud of you, Pete.
Go Hawks!
On a quest to own the West, yippee-ki-yay, we make the ground shake. On game day, 12 man, yeah, he's feeling it is vital. The Seahawks coming to take division titles.
This is the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandon Schultz. Joining me, my good buddy, Adam Emmert.
What is up, Brandon? Had to hit the mic today, get you guys a little Seahawks info, because we've had a few things go down, and we brought on an expert to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going into the long holiday weekend. Give you guys something to listen to while you're hanging out down at the lake, watching fireworks, or maybe you just wait until and have something waiting for you on Tuesday when it's time to get back to work, and then you don't have to feel so grumpy about being back at work on a Tuesday.
Hey man, if that's how it's got to go, that's a good anecdote to the what would that be, the Tuesday Grumpies at that point?
I don't even know. They don't have a Garfield or a stuffed animal that is grumpy about Tuesdays, so I don't even have anything to equate with that day.
No, it's a good point.
So we have a few things to talk about, a few big news items. As Adam mentioned, we have a guest coming on the show, Stephen Cohen of the Seattle PI, here to talk about Doug Baldwin's new contract and what that means for the team. Doug Baldwin, of course, signing a big 4-year extension this week. That's the biggest news of the week, right, Adam?
It is, and it's a huge deal. Another one of the nucleus of this team locked up. Excited about that.
Another couple of other news items. Tavares Jackson arrested this and pretty much solidifying that he won't be back with the Seahawks. I think we can expect that now that he's been arrested for pointing a gun at his wife.
Well, that's fine by me, because that means the less we have to talk about him, because you still can't pronounce his name right. You haven't been able to do it since day one.
I haven't?
No, it's not Tavares. It's Tavares.
Tavares.
Yeah.
I thought that's how I say it.
Tavares. No, you say Tavares like it's an air at the end of it. You say it every time.
I think you're wrong. We're going to have to go back on the tape on this one.
Oh, every time, man. I want the listeners to chime in on this one. I am right about this. It's like Tavares, like it's air at the end of it. Tavares. Yeah.
Well, you're right if that's the case. If I've been saying it that way, I've been wrong.
It's Tavares.
Well, then I'm almost as happy as when TJ Houshmandzadeh left the team, because I don't have to spell his last name. That was the worst part of blogging about the Seahawks.
That would have been
trying to spell Houshmandzadeh back in the day.
That would have been tough. Yep. But yeah, a sad story. We'll get into that a little bit. Also, a couple silly lists, a couple more. We said we'd hold on to a couple. We'll talk about those real quick. And maybe not an entirely full show for you, but at least a little bit for you.
A little bit of something. And like we talked about, Doug Baldwin getting the new contract, the big news, we couldn't let that pass for another week.
No, because it is a really critical signing. You talk about a dude who has been the epitome of what it means to be a Seahawk. Hard worker, came from the bottom, came from nothing, and has worked his way up now to a huge guarantee in his contract, a lot of guaranteed money, and I think he's earned every penny. And it's really great to see going forward that you're going to have this core of guys. I mean, we have a 5-year run now with the guys that you basically see now, the stars you see now. You're going to see a few moving parts, obviously, beyond that. But overall, yep, this is it, and that's exciting to see. The chemistry between Doug Baldwin and Russell Wilson has been growing exponentially, especially towards the end of last year. And look, I think it's going to be good overall for the cap one. We talked about that a little bit last week, and I'm just excited all around. He's one of my favorite guys, and really, like I said, core member of this team's personality.
Oh, for sure. And just that story of being that guy who went undrafted and worked his way up and got a deal a couple years back where he got an extension. And now has worked his way up to being paid among the top wide receivers in the game. It's a cool story. And those are the types of guys that you root for, and now he really has his opportunity to kind of solidify himself among the Seahawks top wide receivers of all time, being here for 5 more years, playing with a quarterback like Russell Wilson. And I was looking at the stats here recently because there's another article I want to talk about, and that's Sheil Kapadia's article here recently comparing Andrew Luck and Russell Wilson. Another big news item this week. Andrew Luck just got paid. He got paid.
Yeah, he got paid, and he should have gotten paid. Of course, you have a young franchise caliber quarterback. You're going to pay the man.
But
you're going to pay the man. It makes sense.
Looking back at Russell Wilson's stats, he hit the 4,000-yard club last year with the Seahawks.
No, he doesn't throw it enough to do that, Brandon. He can't.
It feels that way because nobody talks about the fact that Russell Wilson actually threw for 4,000 yards.
Right.
But, yeah, he did. And a lot of those yards went to Doug Baldwin.
Well, that for sure. And look, the other advantage you talked about with Doug Baldwin is he does get to play the next 5 years with the best quarterback in Seahawks history.
Right.
Like that's going to be good for his deal.
It'll be good for his deal for sure.
And I think that's one of the things that you see because greatness attracts greatness, right?
Yeah.
And when you have these guys that become free agents or restricted free agents or have a year left on the end of their deal, they're more likely to stay with the guys that they know and like, respect, and have had success with. And it's really, give Schneider a lot of credit because it all stems from his initial scouting report on guys about personality and makeup and the whole thing. And it comes together just like this. I'm pretty excited. Doug Baldwin on board for the next 5 years. But let's talk about Sheil Kapadia's, or Kapadia's. See, I don't know how to say his name. You can
Sheil
kill me on that.
Kapadia.
Okay.
See, if I say Tavares, then now you just have to give me a pass on that.
No, I don't, and I won't. But great article because he really does lay out the argument of how Russell Wilson is the better quarterback than Andrew Luck to this point of his career. And
something we already knew, but it's nice to see a reporter at ESPN actually point it out to the rest of the world.
Right. Even if it's the Seahawks beat reporter for ESPN, at least somebody at Worldwide Network.
Don't even throw that in there. He is an ESPN writer.
Right.
Exactly. There is no bias just because he's a Seahawks beat reporter.
Well, no, absolutely not. But look, I thought it was a great article, and he really broke down a lot of the numbers. And just some of the things right out of the gate that make you look at things. Completion percentage. Russell Wilson, 64.7 compared to Andrew Luck's 58.1. And Russell Wilson has been under more duress in his career. And everybody talks about, well, he's got the defense to back him up. Defense doesn't catch balls. Right. He's got to work with the wide receivers that are out there.
That is the worst, lamest argument that Pete Prisco and all the people like him always love to bring up is that, well, Russell Wilson's never playing at a disadvantage because he has that great defense that he's always able to kind of lean on. That does not give him, having a great defense doesn't improve your completion percentage or how well you can throw touchdowns.
That's exactly right. Where Russell Wilson's touchdown to interception ratio, 3.12 compared to Andrew Luck's 1.84. Andrew Luck's a bit of a chucker. He throws a lot of picks. Just look at their overall quarterback rating, 101.8 for Wilson and 85 for Andrew Luck. You know who Wilson is second to in passer rating for career ever? Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
That's the only dude above
guy.
him.
Yeah, but here, Adam, you're giving their overall numbers, right? If we break this down and just look inside the pocket, right? That's the other big argument is Russell Wilson is so great at escaping outside the pocket.
From the pocket.
And Russell Wilson can't throw from the pocket, and that's really where Andrew Luck excels, right?
Yeah, Russell Wilson's he's too short. Does
he even have a single pass from the pocket? Because he can't, right?
No, it's clear that he's too short. That's why the Seahawks went out and got a bunch of huge offensive linemen for him to play behind this year. It's probably because he's too short to see over.
But here we have Shield broke it out. He broke out the inside the pocket numbers. And let's see, looky here. We can expect Andrew Luck's going to be better because, that's just what everybody says. Wait a second.
Beat back the truck up.
Russell Wilson completion percentage from inside the pocket, 67.8. Andrew Luck, 59.1. And touchdowns to interception ratio, Russell Wilson at 3.07, Andrew Luck at 1.79. Passer rating for Andrew Luck, 86.1. Passer rating for Russell Wilson, 105.9.
Wait a second. I thought he was more deadly when he was out of the pocket. His numbers are even higher than his average numbers from just inside the pocket. That's really weird. I thought he was incapable.
Maybe we've been listening to too much Prisco lately.
I don't know. That's really odd. But yeah, at that point, that paints a perfect picture. I mean, everybody wants to make Andrew Luck the anointed one. Of course, he was number one pick. I get it. And he looks the part.
Yeah.
Problem is there's a guy that just flat does it better. And I just don't know what else to say. I mean, the numbers bear it out. Look at under pressure, completion percentage. Now, you got to imagine everybody's worse under pressure.
Right.
That's definitely the situation for all NFL quarterbacks. But under pressure, Russell Wilson completes 36.6% of his passes. Andrew Luck, 27.6%. 9 percentage points lower, nearly 10.
Well,
That's ridiculous.
This isn't percentage completion. This is the amount of time they spend under pressure.
I'm sorry, I misread that. Yeah, that was the time that they were under pressure. And look, so Russell Wilson under pressure a lot more than Andrew Luck. I mean, and he's still a better quarterback. Right. So how does that work? Must be his great defense that doesn't block for him.
I wish we could get some of the guys on defense to block for him.
We've tried that though. We keep trying that, and it just it's not working out. I'm ready to go back to offensive.
Well, we have to move some of our own players and not take college players from the defensive line. I think that's how it works.
Is that how it works?
I don't know.
Well, I'm fine with using offensive linemen to play offensive line to this point. But the only thing that I think in the Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson argument that's legit, when people are like, that's unfair towards Andrew Luck, is when you point at Russell Wilson's Super Bowl ring and another Super Bowl appearance, he has played on a better team. Like, I mean, that is true.
Right.
And that's a team award. But when you look at the individual numbers, I mean, understand the other moving parts help with all that, but Russell Wilson's a much better quarterback.
Yeah, and that was an argument I used to kind of wonder about that people made, whether or not Andrew Luck, if you put him on the Seattle Seahawks, would he be able to produce at that level? Would he be able to lead a team like the Seahawks to a Super Bowl, having the same supporting cast that Russell Wilson did? And a couple of years ago, I might have said yes, but now seeing how things have gone and watching how long Andrew Luck likes to hold the ball in the pocket, I'm not so sure that he would fare all that much better with the offensive line the Seahawks have put in front of Russell Wilson.
Well, he wouldn't fare any better that way. And the other thing is that if he already is mistake prone via interceptions, right, which he is, and you put him under added pressure, do you think those interception numbers are going to go down or up?
I would say up.
I'm going to go with but pretty hearty up. So it's really, I know we're Seahawks fans and I know we're biased, but we try to come at you from a pretty balanced perspective as much as we can. I mean, we're fans, but this has over the last couple of years been a pretty clear argument to this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think until, maybe the next contract for Russell Wilson, when he's paid top quarterback money, I wonder if that's how long we'll have to wait to kind of settle this argument.
It might be. It might very well be. But speaking of that argument, so there was a list on NFL.com, and basically I'll try my best to be clear as to what this list was, because it's a little convoluted, but they were looking at the top 3 young QBs that have now just signed their big extensions with Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, and Russell Wilson. And what they were doing was having the debate as to how they will rank in comparison to one another in the year 2021. Not this year, not last year, but in 2021. Like, I don't understand it. I mean, what's the point of that exercise? I don't understand that.
It's the off season.
Man, maybe it's just to make it so that in 5 years in that offseason, they can go back and look at what their prediction was 5 years previously and make themselves some more news in something that, but this is stupid. They had on about 6 experts. They all had them in different levels,
So it wasn't clear that Russell Wilson was going to be the best.
No, but he had a number of nominations for number one. Cam had a couple. Andrew Luck had a couple. I think it may have even been equal. I didn't take the time to read it because it was stupid. I don't have a DeLorean. I didn't go to the future and figure out who was the best and then come back. It's just dumb. It's dumb as a stupid list. NFL.com, that was stupid.
Well, while we're on the topic of quarterbacks, let's talk a little Tavares Jackson, because he got himself in a little bit of legal trouble here this last week, and A former Seahawks quarterback, not on the team anymore, but probably assuming he's looking for a place to land, and ends up getting arrested for pointing a gun at his wife or someone. I saw one article that said it was someone who was reported to be his wife. So maybe that isn't even sure. So I don't. Maybe we'll just say girlfriend.
I think it was his wife.
Yeah, whoever it was had some fire in the comment of one of the stories. But clearly, down there in Florida, we heard a lot of just really bad stories, just all coming out of Florida here this last week, and that was one of them. Doesn't really seem like Tavares. See, well, there I go. See, you caught me. I caught myself saying Tavares.
Yeah. Yeah, you did it when you started this segment too.
I know. Yeah,
that's fine. He's never going to play for the Seahawks again. This may be the last time you have to talk about it.
That's essentially what I'm getting at.
I'm going to give you an out. Just go T-Jack.
T-Jack.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known that, 112 shows ago.
Yeah, no, I've just brought it up now. But basically with Tavares, it is a really sad story, and it feels out of character for him. But again, we don't know these guys.
We don't know these guys. No, that's it.
But you don't point a gun at a woman, dude. I mean, if he really did that, I hope he gets what's coming to him. I just, plain and simple. Like, that's it. But I'll tell you what, the wife, though, I'm going to give her a lot of credit. She's got some gumption. While he's pointing a gun at her, apparently she says to him, "You better be accurate because you ain't on the field." That's a hilarious quote. In a sad situation, everything, but there's some humor for you there, right there. I've got that lady's got it, man. She's got it.
I was waiting for the report that T-Jack was recovering in the burn unit of the area hospital down there after that.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. All right. But sad story. Thought we'd bring it up.
And even sadder, another sad aspect of it was something that just came out today. It was that he reportedly requested a public defender saying that he didn't have enough money. And, for a guy that's had years and years in the NFL, and you see stories like Marshawn Lynch, where they say he's hardly spent any of his money.
Right.
To see something like that, it makes the story even more sad.
Well, not only that, but then he got rejected to get that public defender on top of all of that. So, I don't know, maybe he wasn't buying the financial report. Maybe there's more there than we know.
Apparently, he still owns a $100,000 car. So I think that's where the judge may have been going with that.
Oh, well, that could be. I don't know. Maybe it's his last possession, though, too.
Yeah, that was the quote, is that that's all he owns. So,
wow. But a sad story all the way around. I hope that they get to the bottom of what actually happened.
Yeah, because we were rooting for him to land on another team. And but after hearing this, it doesn't make you root for the guy at all.
You know one guy I do root for, and that's Stephen Cohen from...
Yeah. Let's get to our interview with Stephen Cohen of the Seattle PI. Adam, last week we talked about Bill Simmons' advice and how to kind of follow the offseason news. And if folks missed it, essentially he said that in the time of the offseason, when we only get positivity from the coaches and players, you have to read what the beat writers for the team and what they have to say. Well, we have Stephen Cohen, beat writer for the Seahawks from the Seattle PI. You can follow him at SCohenPI on Twitter. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me.
Let's get into the biggest news of the week for the Seahawks. Doug Baldwin signed a new deal this week that pays him among the top wide receivers in the league, especially when you take into account guaranteed money. You published an article here just on Friday talking about the biggest takeaways of his new contract. How much of a factor did Baldwin's production at the end of the year last year impact this deal?
I think it had a huge impact on the numbers. I don't think there was ever any real decision from the Seahawks as far as whether or not they wanted to keep Baldwin around. But I think what he did over those last 8 games last season, where basically he put up the same production, catches and yards wise, as he averaged for an entire regular season through his first 4 years, and then led the league with 12 touchdowns in 8 games. I think that radically changed the price tag. Because I think what you saw is a Seahawks offense that was transitioning to a post-Marshawn Lynch offense. And I think it became apparent that Doug Baldwin was going to be a huge, huge part of that. Whereas before he'd been, somebody who produced, but he wasn't producing at that level. He wasn't putting up those numbers, and probably his perception around the rest of the league wasn't as high. So, or his valuation around the rest of the league wasn't as high. So I think it was, huge. The year he put to last year for him getting this money and getting really into the top, 10 contracts for wide receivers in the league.
His 4-year, $46 million deal. It seems like a big deal. Like you said, the impact of his production at the end of the year made a difference. But do you think moving forward, we're going to look back on this and say, that ended up being a heck of a deal because, it kind of made sense for both sides to get this deal done now, because if he continues to play lights out throughout this season, the way he finished last season, the contract numbers are going to seem like a deal from the Seahawks perspective. But then again, you have all his production leading up to that final 8 games of the season that have to kind of factor into it too.
Yeah, I think this is going to end up looking like a fairly team-friendly deal when it's all done, just because I think the cap is going to continue to grow, as we've seen, really exponentially over the last couple of years. And seeing Baldwin's production here, what he's capable of. I kept on thinking last year when I watched him, what would he do in an offense like New England's if they put him in the slot? This could be easily, in my mind, a 100-catch guy with 12 touchdowns every year. In the Seahawks offense, as it's been kind of formulated in previous seasons, you're not going to have guys like this. And then he put up this year last year that was just absolutely huge. So I think in some ways, he is taking advantage of sort of hitting a career year at the exact right time. I think in other ways, though, the Seahawks are going to reap the benefits of this contract, because I think, unlike Jermaine Kearse, who I always felt was more valuable to the Seahawks than to any other team in the league, I think Baldwin's skills would translate to a number of teams in the league who would have loved to have him and loved to see him on the open market, and where he could have potentially made more money even on the open market. So I think that's the difference between those two, and I think probably it plays into the Seahawks' hands. I don't think he wanted to leave, though, so it might be just kind of a moot point.
So, Stephen, over the last couple of years, we've seen the Seahawks sign a couple players that have kind of outplayed their contract, and they've got a good deal with those players, say like Cam Chancellor or Michael Bennett. Do you think that there's a possibility that this would become such a team-friendly deal if Baldwin continues this level of play, that we end up in kind of the same position we are now with Cam and Bennett, both unhappy with their contracts just a couple years in?
Yeah, it's a possibility. I think Bennett's contract was always low. Cam's was, the thing you have to remember about Cam's deal is that they signed it to him when he wasn't a household name yet. He was kind of coming off of a breakthrough season, but still he wasn't as well known around the country. And so they kind of gave him a chance to start earning big money before he would have, before he really arrived. And then he absolutely outplayed it and turned into one of the best defensive backs in the NFL. Bennett, I think what you just saw was a guy who was, just consistently undervalued, even from when he was in Tampa Bay, and they let him walk and let him sign with Seattle for, I think, a 1-year, $4 million deal in 2013 or something like that. Mm-hmm. If you look at the numbers he put up in Tampa Bay before that year, that's insane. I believe he led the Bucs in sacks that year, and he was their best defensive lineman. And he's always been undervalued. Drew Rosenhaus, his former agent, obviously undervalued him when he was doing the extension, or the new deal. I guess it wasn't a contract extension, right, after the Super Bowl there. So I don't know. I don't know if Baldwin's the same way. I feel like with those other two guys, it was kind of their first deals with the team. Chancellor had his rookie year deal before, but that was fairly routine, and then they gave him a big extension. With Baldwin, I think what you've seen is the Seahawks have stepped up their level of commitment to him, from going from the undrafted free agent deal to the 3-year extension he signed in 2014, and then now to this one. And I think it's just one of those rare cases where a player and a team grow together. I don't see him coming back 3 years from now and demanding that they rip up his deal with 2 years left or something like that. It doesn't strike me as that type of deal. Because it does strike me that they're sort of rewarding him too for his years of service with the team already with this.
Well, yeah, it's his years of service. And another thing that you talk about is intangibles too, right? Because here you have this guy that came to the team as an undrafted free agent, wasn't even drafted, and here he has worked his way all the way to being one of the top paid receivers in the league. You talk about his intangibles in your article here on Doug Baldwin. Just what does that mean to this team?
I think it gives them a story they want to tell, which is that Seattle's a place where you can carve out a spot for yourself through hard work. It was interesting looking at all of his teammates' tweets on social media and after the deal was announced, and how many of them contained the phrase hard work. This is a guy who is known among his teammates as one of the guys who stays on the field the longest, is out there doing what he needs to do to get better. He was on the practice field at a local high school here the day after the contract was signed, working with Jake Heaps, a third-string quarterback, and working on his routes and stuff like that. And just the guy works so hard and has kind of pulled himself up after being undervalued in the whole draft process and throughout college, really. That's a story they like to tell because not only does it kind of play into what they value in a player, that the grit, they're always talking about grit, they're talking about toughness, they're talking about work ethic, but they need these kinds of stories so they can attract the next Doug Baldwin. The next guy who's coming out undrafted, who feels hard done by, who feels like he wants to, prove himself and prove his doubters wrong. I think that having Baldwin around allows them to keep telling that story again and again and pointing back to it. And there's no shortage of guys on this roster who have done that, but I think he's probably the best story of all of them. So I think in that regard, they love having him around. And then you have his presence in the locker room and on the sidelines with his teammates. He's obviously a leader. He's a leader inside his position group. He's a leader on the offense. He's a leader through the entire season, or entire team. He's constantly joking around and challenging players like Bobby Wagner and Cam Chancellor on the practice field. He's a guy who will take Russell Wilson aside and talk to him if he feels like something's not going right in the offense. So you really can't put a price tag on what he brings to the team in that regard. So it's just another reason why they wanted him around.
When you take into account the amount that the Seahawks are now putting into the pass catchers and the quarterback position, it's kind of crazy to think about the fact that, with having the focus on running the ball, that so little money is paid to the offensive line. And now with Marshawn Lynch gone, so little money paid to running backs as well. So are we starting to see a change in philosophy with the Seahawks?
Well, I think, it's not putting their money where their mouth is, but it's putting their money where they need to right now. And that's with the pass catchers in this incarnation of the team. I think they'll always be evolving, and they won't, kind of corner themselves with their contracts to the point where they have to be one-dimensional. But, I do think we're seeing an increased emphasis on those pass catchers and increased value on the passing side. Now, part of that is because they're able to get 3 running backs in the draft and get them cheap. And then you have a guy like Christian Michael coming back on a restricted free agent contract. So you're able to do that. You're able to take from one area in order to give to another area. And that's what they were doing always, earlier. Russell Wilson was getting paid peanuts. And so they were able to pay Marshawn Lynch top running back money. They were able to extend Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas and those types of things. So I think you're always going to see a balancing act here. But I do think right now what you're seeing is they recognize that the players they have on their team who are their core guys that they need to shore up are in the passing game, whether that's Baldwin or whether that's, Jimmy Graham, who they've kept at his contract from New Orleans here, or whether that's Russell Wilson. So the next one probably coming up in a year, I guess actually maybe 2 more years, will be Tyler Lockett, and we'll see how much they value him, but he'll be another guy who, they're going to get a ton of production out of while he's cheap right now. So they'll take advantage of that. That's just kind of they'll take advantage of whatever they can by getting young, cheap players and throwing them in and getting production out of them before they need extensions. And then they'll make their decisions down the line. Maybe they move on from a player like Jermaine Kearse because they feel like they don't need to pay him and Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett. And you could see that happen.
Well, let's move on to the players that they are skimping on here, Stephen. You talked about the offensive line being that place a little bit. We hear outside of Seattle, all we hear is the coach speak day in and day out from the press conferences. Things like, Justin Britt's really embraced his role. And, Pro Size has had his best, he's a running back, but he's had his best day as a Seahawk. And, none of that stuff means anything. Being there as the beat reporter with your eyes on the ground there, what have you seen out of the offensive lineman to this point, as much as you can see through limited contact? Do you feel good about some of the changes? Or are you still a little nervous? How does that feel overall for you?
I think they have a lot to prove. It is, so, the big caveat is that this isn't full contact. They're not in pads. So the offensive and defensive lines are the hardest things to watch during these workouts. We really won't get a good feel for them until training camp. I will say they look big. That right side of the line especially looks enormous with Jermaine Ifedi and Jamarcus Webb. Justin Britt's got great size for the center position. The left side, Gary Gilliam sat out minicamp and most of OTAs after having a minor knee procedure, so we didn't really get a look at him. Maybe there's a chance to develop quicker. Maybe there's a chance to gel quicker than last year, because that's what we saw last year, right? Is that line after about 8 games after they injected Patrick Lewis into the lineup there, they sort of came together and they had their momentary struggles, but overall it was fine. Maybe that happens quicker this year, but I don't know that they're going to start out as the finished product you want to see there. So we'll see in the preseason. If you'll remember last year, they didn't make the switch with Justin Britt to guard and Gilliam to the starting lineup until a couple of weeks into training camp. Now, if they make a switch like that again, we'll have alarm bells going off, because I think that will signal that the group of 5 they really wanted to go in with, Gilliam, Glowinski, Britt, Ifedi, and Webb, aren't working out. So that'll be the thing to watch.
One thing that I saw that was interesting, a few weeks ago, you said you didn't think Terry Poole would make the team, and now he's among the 10 that on your 53-man roster projection. Yeah. Was there anything that changed just in the camp that changed your mind on Poole?
It's mostly just watching the rotations, frankly, at this point, and seeing where the coaches put him. Mm-hmm. And the coaches have him sort of the top reserve at right tackle. But the other thing to keep in mind there is Bradley Soule is playing on the left side. And he's a guy who could potentially play both sides as a reserve, and so they might not need Terry Poole to be just kind of a backup on the right-hand side there. No, I haven't seen anything of him that would lead me to believe that he is going to be like a world beater or anything like that. But they're going to have to keep a number of bodies there, and I just think once you get kind of to the back end of that competition, it's really thin as far as guys who have any kind of proven NFL stock. And so maybe they take, risk on a guy who they spent a 4th-round pick on just last year. I'm still not high on Terry Poole, I wouldn't say, but I do think they're going to give him every shot to earn a camp or to earn a job in camp there. And then, we'll see what happens with guys like Christian Sicoli. If he develops and they think that he's a versatile guy who could play both center and guard in a reserve role, then, they always love versatility. So Poole doesn't strike me as that. He strikes me as only really a guy who can play right tackle for you. Maybe could slide inside the guard in a pinch, but it's going to be a tough camp battle for him, and they have to keep a bunch of bodies there though. So that's kind of why he made it on my last one.
So those are guys going into their second year. How about the rookies? Which rookies for the Seahawks are you most excited to see develop here going into training camp?
The one that caught my eye was Quentin Jefferson, the 5th-round pick out of Maryland. He was listed as defensive tackle, and they played him on end with Michael Bennett sitting out many of the offseason workouts, or all the offseason workouts, and then slid him inside on passing packages. And I think that he is a guy who looks right now like is going to earn some playing time as a rookie. I think Jaron Reed probably starts inside the 2nd-round pick, and I think he's going to be, a really good run stuffer for them. But I think just based on where they were playing him and how much run he was getting, how much time he was getting with the fellow starters, and how many different looks he got, I think they really like Quentin Jefferson. I think that they feel like he can be a nice piece in there. So he stood out. On offense, it would have been nice to see Kenny Lawler a little bit more. But the running backs are pretty fun. Alex Collins is a guy who runs really hard, gets to the hole quick, and then has some real surprising elusiveness in the hole, cutting ability. And then CJ Procise is pretty electric. When you see him get the ball and you see him kind of even out on patterns, he's special with the ball. So both of those guys should be really fun to watch.
Well, let's talk a little bit of backup quarterbacks, because Tavares Jackson was in the news. Actually, both backup quarterbacks, a former backup quarterback and current backup quarterback, were in the news for unfortunate reasons here this last week. Tavares arrested for pointing a gun allegedly at his girlfriend, and then Trevon Boykin pleading guilty to a misdemeanor offense that happened kind of before the bowl game way back in December. Looks like he's going to miss jail time. How does that position now look for the Seahawks going into training camp?
Well, I think it looks like it looked at the end of minicamp, which is you've got Russ Wilson, you've got Trevon Boykin, and you've got Jake Heaps, and Boykin would be your favorite to be back up at this point.
Is that okay?
It would make me nervous if I were a Seahawks fan. I'd be a little bit nervous about it because this is an unproven guy who wasn't regarded highly enough to get drafted by any team. And, you know, the legal issues with him were, I mean, that was never hidden. Teams knew that going in.
Right.
And so it's not a big deal from that perspective. I don't think that was ever something the Seahawks were super worried about. It was just sort of needed to work itself out. And he showed some flashes, but, you know, he's really going to have to show a lot, I think, for people to be very comfortable with him going forward. He does play in a similar style to Russell Wilson, so I will say that there is some consistency there. When you see him kind of running around in the pocket and making plays with his feet and trying to extend plays, he's nowhere near the polished passer that Wilson is, and he's obviously inexperienced, but there's some cohesiveness there. I thought they would bring back Jackson before this arrest last week. I think that's off the table pretty obviously now. Yeah. I doubt that he plays in the NFL again. So I don't know. You know, there are a couple of veteran backups who are out there. It's not anybody exciting, but there are a couple of guys who you would think they could make a run at if they felt uncomfortable with Boykin's development. But then, you know, you're breaking in a brand new guy who's new to the system and is trying to learn on the fly and taking snaps away from your young guys. So it's a bit of a thin spot. I guess we'll see going forward what they think, you know, if they think there's a veteran worth pursuing there. But it's definitely something worth watching for the entire training camp.
Well, and speaking of relying on young guys, we look at the running back core here, and Thomas Rawls obviously slated to be the lead back, but still, from what we hear, hasn't really participated in a lot of drills or anything. Is there anything you're hearing that us Hawks fans would like to hear about his progression? I mean, is it something that we should start to be concerned about, or is he right on track still to be right around opening day?
I have seen him. The only time I've seen him is walking on the sidelines, and he's not participated in any drills. So he's not doing position drills. He's not putting on a helmet to run through anything. He's not running, period. Jimmy Graham was even doing a little bit of running during minicamp. It was too soon for Rawls, and Pete Carroll even told us as much, that Graham is a little bit ahead in his recovery than Rawls was, which surprised, I think, a lot of us who figured that Graham's patellar tendon issue was the more serious injury. So, you know, it's an ankle foot thing, which can be a little bit tricky, and you don't want to hurry a guy back before you feel he's ready. But I think with Rawls, it's just a matter of getting to the point where they can say, okay, you're full go, and then just kind of take the restrictions off. And they'll wait to do that until they feel like they can, you know, he can really go and he can cut and he can, you know, take some contact and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't have tons of information for you other than he tweeted today that he was feeling good. So I guess we'll take him at his word there. But yeah, no, I think it's a very open question as to whether or not he's going to be ready for the start of camp. I would probably bet against it at this point. So you just have to kind of wonder when he'll get in there and when he'll be able to participate and how much they'll try and use him in the preseason. You know, this isn't like Marshawn Lynch, who played, you know, for a bunch of years and they'd keep him out of the preseason games because he really didn't need it. This is a guy entering his second year who could probably use some carries in the preseason, frankly, to get kind of the rust off. So we'll see how soon they're able to bring him back.
You know, speaking of Marshawn Lynch, as someone who reports on the team, are you going to miss him?
I will miss the Marshawn Lynch that I've seen since he retired, but that's not the same guy who we had access to as media members. You know, he famously didn't like talking to us. So, yeah, no, but he was always a great guy to kind of, for his teammates to be around. You could see him interacting with the teammates and kind of see how much they respected him, how much they enjoyed being around him. So yeah, from that perspective, I will. And then from the perspective of just watching him in action, I don't know that there was a more fun running back over the last 5 years to watch than Lynch, just with his blend of power and elusiveness and vision. I think it was a treat for me to come in and be able to see him play for 3 seasons. And I'll certainly miss that perspective.
I don't know, Stephen. I sense a little animosity in your voice, a little bit, a little apprehension maybe, because I seem to remember you tweeting out about just how unimpressed you were waiting out in the cold to see if Marshawn Lynch would just get on the bus.
Yeah, no, the sideshow stuff I won't miss at all. That will be great. The drama kind of surrounding him the last couple of years, I don't think any of us will miss that. But as far as just the player goes, absolutely.
Well, Stephen, really want to thank you for joining us, especially considering we're probably keeping you from hitting the road this holiday weekend. So let folks know they can find your articles at seattlepi.com, as well as follow you on Twitter at scohen, COHENPI on Twitter.
That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stephen. Seahawkers Podcast is the official podcast of the official booster club of the Seattle Seahawks, and we're getting into the second half of our show. Big thanks to Stephen Cohen for coming on earlier.
You bet, man. He's great. I appreciate his insight and giving us a little time.
I know. It's always good to kind of get that insight of someone who's actually there watching the team go through their off-season workouts, maybe get a little bit more information. And, of course, he's following the Doug Baldwin contract situation. Good stuff from Stephen. A couple of things coming up. The Sherman softball game, Adam. It's time of year again.
It is. You heading out for that?
I don't think I'm going to do it this year.
Oh, okay.
I know. It's a good time, though. I mean, a good time to be around fellow Seahawks fans. And I think I want to save up for more games this year.
I don't blame you. But it is a good time. If you guys are in the area, go to the game. It's for a great cause. Richard Sherman does a great job with that. It's a really fun outing. I dare you to do it with the frown. It's impossible.
And Marshawn Lynch apparently supposed to be there too. So, you're not just going to get the one Seahawks player. You're going to see, Russell Wilson always makes time to be there. You can usually see him hit it out of the park at least once. So that's coming up July 10th at Safeco Field. Gates open at 11:30, and home run derby before the game starts. Good times.
Yeah, you betcha.
The other cool thing that's coming up, and depending on when folks are listening to the show, Cliff Averill going to be on Family Feud, Adam.
Okay. Family Feud, huh?
I don't know about you, but I am all about Family Feud, and
it's still on?
It's still Steve Harvey's the host of it now.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I had no idea.
No.
I had no idea.
What, did you still think the host was the dude that kissed every female that was on the show?
Yes.
Richard Dawson. Richard Dawson, that was his name.
Yeah, man. I thought the show was done with him. I had no idea that even continued on.
Oh, it's been going on. It had the dude from Tool Time, the guy with
Tim
the beard.
Al?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Al was the host for a while. There was another guy that he does the voice of one of the characters on SpongeBob. Oh, maybe
Louis Anderson was the...
Yeah, Louis Anderson was it for a while.
Okay, I do remember that. Huh, wow. I had no idea.
Oh, the Feud, it's still a thing, and it's still going on.
Is it?
Well, they're going to put, Seahawks, Cliff Averill's the only Seahawks player out of the two shows that they're going to run, but it's going to be the NFC defensive team against the AFC offensive team. And then for the other show, they're going to flip-flop it. But so it's going to be Cliff Averill, Thomas Davis, the linebacker from the Panthers, Malcolm Jenkins, the safety from the Eagles, Terrence Knighton, the lineman for the Washington, and Cardinals DB Tyrann Mathieu. That's going to be your defense.
That'll be fun. That will be fun. Matthew's a good personality, man. Like, so him and Averill and all that. That'll be a good mix.
It's getting hard to kind of root against Tyrann Mathieu, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Larry Fitzgerald. I'm going to hate you on the field, but you're a good dude.
Yeah, I am. So another thing that just came out, Adam, and I don't know if you've seen this yet, but this is something that just before we got underway with the show today, I had a little bit of a hard time hitting pause on, and that's the All or Nothing, a season with the Arizona Cardinals that they're gonna. It's all on Amazon right now to watch the entire season. It was NFL Films they followed the Arizona Cardinals for all of last season, and they filmed it. And they turned it into like an 8 episode series and it's just on Amazon.
Is there any form of Bless Me Fest that Bruce Arians will not participate in?
And that's
he loves the glory and the attention so much.
It's
God,
it's over the top.
I haven't watched it, but I'm sure it's abhorrent. Like there's no way. There's no way I'm watching that.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it for one as fuel. To fuel my Cardinals hatred.
Okay. I get that.
My Cardinals sports hatred.
Yeah.
And it does seem like an interesting show. Already has 5 stars, 73 reviews. So, but that could just be Cardinals fans that are watching it so far.
You think it's somebody else?
Look, people watch Hard Knocks, and to me, this seems like less of a reality show that Hard Knocks is, and more of a
like the NFL Films year in review, like the yearbook kind of thing.
Yeah, this gives you some of the behind the scenes, but also on the field, and get to know some of the players and the personalities. And I don't care to know any more about Bruce Arians from what I've seen so far. But there's guys like Fitz and Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah, I don't know that lifts it to watchability level for me though.
I don't know either. I'm gonna give it a shot.
Okay, well, report back. Let us all know here on the pod.
I will.
Okay.
And I should have a good few episodes watched by the time we do our Know Your Rivals series with the Arizona Cardinals, because that is the team we're going to kick this off with.
That'll be a lot of fun.
You know what I'm hoping, though, going back to Family Feud, I'm hoping that we get...
We're going back to Family Feud?
We are, because I'm hoping that there's a moment like this that comes out of this NFL special.
Something a burglar would not want to see when he breaks into a house. Rob.
Naked grandma!
Naked, huh?
I don't want to see that either.
I know you're right, okay? Nobody wants to see a naked grandma, but what are the chances of you breaking in the house and running up into your grandmama naked? Looking for the naked grandmama in the house, outside, in the woods, on the blanket. That's the occupant person that's there.
You don't want to see a naked grandma when you walk into when you're a burglar and walking into a house.
Yeah, I think my first answer would have been police, but maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, naked grandma, not good.
Oh, we did get one piece of feedback here from Eric Speece. We haven't heard from him in a long time.
Yeah. All right. It's been a while.
I know. So on the topic of busts, pretty short email says, Johnny Manziel is the perfect example of a bust. All the talent in the world, but came from oil money. Money was never an issue for him.
Well played. There's no arguing that, right? Like, yeah, there's your bust. Give him a bust in Canton for being a bust,
right?
Because he is the bust of all busts.
Does Trent Richardson go in with him? He at least tries, though.
He's maybe not first ballot. Yeah, Trent Richardson actually tried. Johnny Manziel just snorted his future away.
Yeah, man.
But I guess he went sober as of today, Brandon.
Oh, finally, when he got the news that he's been suspended for 4 games for the substance abuse policy of the NFL.
Yeah,
and that it wasn't performance-enhancing substances?
Yeah. No. Well, unless you think cocaine's performance-enhancing. And I mean, I guess in some ways maybe it is.
I don't think it's on the list. But
a lot of times it is definitely a performance degrader. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I would say not considered performance-enhancing in the long term.
No. Or even sometimes in the short term.
Probably not.
All right, man. Well, let's do some do betters and better at life. You want to go first? Do better?
My do better this week is for this story that I saw. I don't know if you have experienced this at all, Adam, but millennials don't eat cereal. Have you heard this?
What?
That millennials, that generationally, eat cereal less than other generations, apparently.
What? How did that happen? There's more cereal than ever.
Yeah, well, apparently the act of making a bowl of cereal isn't too difficult because, you pour the cereal in the bowl, you pour the milk in the bowl, you eat the cereal. It's a very minimally stepped process.
Even I can get that done.
But the part of the story that was a little bit disconcerting, and because Adam, you and I we're kind of on the cusp of the millennial generation.
No, we're not. I am not part of the millennials.
I
know.
Nope. Look, I'm not saying that you're attitude wise that you're going to be.
I'm Gen X.
I know you identify. I identify a little bit both across the boundaries.
You're bi-generational?
I identify as bi-generational.
Oh, okay. Well, I respect that. I respect your decision.
Good. I'm glad you do.
Yeah.
But
and I hope you get to use whatever bathroom you want.
If I'm wearing a watch, I'll use the Gen X bathroom, and if I'm not wearing a watch and I just have my cell phone in my pocket, I'll use the millennial.
So is that why millennials cry at interviews? Is because they didn't eat their cereal before they went in and they're like hungry? Is that what the problem is?
Well, here's the problem with the story is that you will never guess the reason why that millennials say that that they don't eat cereal.
I don't know, because it hurts cows. Who knows, man? They're afraid that they can't eat Fruit Loops because of the decimation of the toucan. Like what? Like what is it?
Almost, and this is according to the Washington Post. The Washington Post spent their time, took a break from, I don't know, politics and important things to talk about cereal. But
maybe if they eat too much cereal, they expand too much and can't fit in their skinny jeans. Is that it?
Those would be more valid reasons than this one, Adam.
Okay. Right.
Almost 40% of the millennials surveyed in this 2015 report said cereal was an inconvenient breakfast choice because they had to clean up after eating it.
I gave him way too much credit with all my other answers, like some thought and some logic. No, because cereal is the laziest breakfast of all time, only behind the snack bar, like a Nutri-Grain bar.
Yeah,
like that's the laziest, second laziest cereal, and like they can't even get that done.
No, because because there's milk residue left in the bowl, you actually have to rinse it. Unless you live in my house, but that act of rinsing the bowl of the milk. Too difficult.
That is stupid with a capital stupid. That's oh my God.
For that, Adam, 40% for you, 40% of millennials that can't bother to eat cereal because you can't clean up after yourself. Do better.
I can't cook, and I am not the cleanliest person. Like, some people they have to have their dishes done the second the meal's over or whatever.
Right.
Like I'll stack up a meal or two and then put it in the dishwasher.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can still get cereal done, man. I don't know.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Not that hard. Yeah.
All right, man.
Sales tumbled by 30%. You say there's a lot of cereals, but
this is how millennials are wrecking the country here.
In the future, Adam, when we're grandma and grandpa, 70, 80 years old, we're not going to have cereal anymore because of millennials.
Well, I thought part of Bernie Sanders' platform speech was there should be somebody to do the cereal dishes after breakfast for everybody for free. Right? I mean, wasn't that part of his platform?
And now that he's not going to get the nomination, thanks a lot to all this. The Hillary supporters ruined it for everyone who loves cereal. I
dared to dream for somebody to do my dishes for me for free.
Although might have been millennials that were supporting Bernie Sanders, so I may have that wrong.
But maybe that's why you have kids, is so that they will. Yeah, millennials were supporting Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Moving on. My do better this week is for 247 Sports, especially their Seattle Seahawks page. I get their updates on the Facebook, right? And I don't know. Are you subscribed to this page at all, Brandon?
I thought we weren't supposed to do better after they wrote a story about us. And I thought they were off limits for do better for giving us a little bit of hype on their page one time.
Well, they didn't give us the hype they give everything else, because when they wrote the article about us, was it the greatest podcast that's ever been podcasting in the history of podcasts?
It should be if it wasn't.
But it wasn't. Not like every other stinking story that comes up on my feed. And they get me 3 out of 4 times. There'll be like an article that comes up. Thomas Rawls has huge, in like capital letters, setback. And then you get in the story, it's like he stubbed his toe 2 mornings before. This player said the worst thing ever about blah, blah, blah. And it was like, yeah, it's pretty good, but, I think I might be better. Like, that's the comment. Like, every time it's a sensationalized headline with something in all caps that makes it click. I'm like, God, that sounds awful. Nope, it's just something stupid.
Here's the thing.
It pisses me off every time. And for that, they need to do better.
You need to do better, Adam, because you should know by now that you can follow Seahawks news, and if it really were that important or that big of a setback to Thomas Rawls, you'd see it like in the Seattle PI or some other reputable news source.
Yeah, I know.
I'd put this on you, my friend.
Yeah, for not unfollowing. Like, I should just do that.
Do that.
And then I don't have to worry about it.
Bleacher Report team stream.
Yeah, I know. All right, man. But still, those are, because I'm fine with like one or two sensational headlines now and then. But the idea that it's just every single one, just enough already.
They know how to get you to click, man.
Oh, clickbaity.
That's why I go to Reddit. They filter, the folks on Reddit just filter that stuff right out for you.
I still don't understand this Reddit thing. Like, there's arrows and like it just keeps dropping. It looks like something from 1996. Like, I don't know.
Maybe that's why I gravitate to it. Having been on the early internet days, it just kind of has that same feel to it.
Because you're Gen X. You're Gen X. No millennial would gravitate to that garbage.
Touche.
Yeah. All right. On to Better at Life.
Who you got?
Well, I changed my mind, and my Better at
shocker.
Life. Yeah. Because as I was looking through 247 sports headlines to find ones to rail about, I came across this headline, and it was the passing of Buddy Ryan this week.
Oh, yeah.
And a guy, surly dude, man, like, kind of an a-hole in some ways, but a true innovator. Basically, he was co-head coach of the 85 Bears.
Right.
Their big
the
Super
year they
Bowl
won the
run.
Super Bowl.
And
the guy that the Bears carried off the field.
Exactly.
It was not Mike Ditka. It was Buddy Ryan.
It was Buddy Ryan. The 46 defense, his time with the Eagles, his effect on the NFL, whether you love or hate the, Rex and Rob Ryan. He's a guy that really shaped the NFL. He's a defensive mastermind and really what it meant to be a football coach all the way around. Tough, hard-nosed guy, somebody I have a lot of respect for. And at the end of the day, a guy that will be remembered probably forever when it comes to NFL. And for all of that, Buddy Ryan, better at life than Skip Bayless.
I think Michael Bennett takes a lot of his philosophy from Buddy Ryan still. Because I saw this quote and that's a quote that's appropriate even today. But he says, a quarterback has never completed a pass when he is flat on his back. We must hit the quarterback hard and often. Quarterbacks are overpaid, overrated, pompous bastards, and must be punished.
Yeah, that's right there in a nutshell. Yeah. Between him and Al Davis, right? The quarterback must go down, and he must go down hard.
It's one of the better Al Davis impressions I've heard.
Thank you.
You're all about the impressions today.
I was gonna say I'm gonna have to work on my Bernie though. That wasn't solid. Hey, did you?
You don't have to work on your Bernie.
You're right. It's
I think
over.
that's the point.
Yeah, but did you see the kid that did the 8th grade?
Yes.
Graduation speech and did all of the political candidates? He was amazing.
He was on some TV show that.
He was on like Jimmy Fallon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. If you guys haven't seen that, look it up. He does every single, whether it's Trump or Hillary or Bernie or Obama, who's hard to do.
Yeah.
He did a really good job. I was impressed.
Yeah, it was on Jimmy Fallon. That's you dead on.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a little bonus better at life right there.
Yeah.
That kid.
Indeed.
All right, man. Let's get out of here with the little bit that we have left of our dignity. What do you say?
Well, speaking of bonus better at life, while we're at it,
okay.
Someone did. It was Keith Ketover.
We're leaving the dignity behind. We're not getting out with our last little bit of dignity.
No. But we talked about how Skip Bayless was moving on from ESPN. So Tosh.0, Daniel Tosh on Comedy Central, he had a little bit of something for Skip Bayless as well. Yeah, check this out.
Finally, great news. ESPN asshat Skip Bayless is no longer with us. Oh, he was the best at being on the wrong side of every issue.
One day, I am predicting, Johnny Manziel will become even bigger in the city of Cleveland than his buddy and business partner LeBron James ever was. Give me Josh Freeman, who was the 17th pick in the first round, over Cam Newton. Why shouldn't I, as a white person, be able to take some pride in Blake Griffin's rise because he did come from a white mom? It is a huge mistake on the part of Peyton Manning. He chose the worst situation to win now. Tim Tebow is virtually unstoppable, and maybe even a starting quarterback for Bill Belichick.
One of the things that folks missed, if you don't see the video, is that it even weaved in some of Skip Bayless's tweets where he said, Manti Te'o, the next Ray Lewis. Derek Fisher would be a better coach than Steve Kerr.
I hope someday we get big enough to where people like bring up the stuff where we were way wrong, like after the fact.
Right.
Like that'll be fun. That'll be a fun moment.
Now, Skip Bayless, always willing to put himself out there. And, funny how they did a little memorial on him, even though he's just going to Fox Sports.
Right. Well, they're nabbing all the high-name guys off of ESPN, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. So honorary Better at Life to Daniel Tosh for playing that. It kind of fits in with the show. But, Adam, my Better at Life this week is for the Fantasy Footballers podcast. We had the podcast awards here this last Sunday. And there was a really motivated network of shows that nearly swept the slate. But one category that network didn't win was sports and recreation, the category that we were in. And the show that won that category, that beat us and went on to win the whole entire podcast awards, the Fantasy Footballers podcast. So, your show may not be real football, but you're better at life than Skip Bayless.
I agree, man, because that was kind of an interesting little cabal of podcasters that did something that wasn't outside of the rules, but
they banded together, got their audience to vote for the other shows, and got all their loyal listeners to kind of bring some other folks up.
Yeah, to vote for shows they don't listen to, which, I guess that's shady, but, again, within the rules,
I don't know if it's
whatever.
shady, yeah.
I'm not mad about it or anything, but yeah, for those guys to pull through without that support of, other podcasters around you like that, good job on them. So well done.
I still think that had the Fantasy Footballers not been in our category, and we would have been up against the Matt Men show that was part of that network. I'm pretty confident that our listeners would have been able to take down that show, even with all the other support from the other shows.
Dude, we'd have taken them to the mat. There's no doubt about that.
Indeed,
there's no doubt about that. Really wish we'd know if we'd beaten out the Green Bay podcast. So I wish they would.
Yeah, the Packers fan podcast. I know we need to see some runner up and some runner up stats on that.
I don't know. Maybe shoot the dude an email. Just be like, hey man, just for the friendly rivalry between the two shows, like where'd we end up here?
Yeah, we need to know. This is important.
Yeah, because if we bring them on for Know Your Rivals,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it, and we decided that whoever wins the NFC Championship game this year, it's going to be the tiebreaker between our two shows.
Oh, so we win?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
I know.
That'll be great.
It's easy.
Yeah, you betcha.
Well, Adam, with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.